Join us on a captivating journey as we explore the charm, history, and vibrant culture of Wilkes County. Discover the hidden gems, inspiring stories, and remarkable people that make Wilkes a place worth knowing and celebrating. Join us now and experience the unique essence of life in Wilkes.
Richard, Angela, welcome to Life in Wilkes.
Thank you. Good morning.
The two of you do something incredibly fascinating. You own Wilkes Hardware now. But before we get into that fascinating story, let's talk a little bit about your backgrounds. In other words, what were you doing before, and what point in your life did something happen and you said, you know, we should buy this hardware store, this old place in town? Angela?
2015, we decided to purchase the hardware store. At that point, I was still teaching middle school.
Okay.
I was actually teaching 8th grade at that point. When I retired, I was teaching 7th.
Now, how long had you been a teacher?
Oh my gosh. I had 25 years experience plus when I retired in 2019.
Wow.
So I had done that for quite a long time.
25 years?
25 years, yes.
Right.
So it was going to be Richard's primary job.
The hardware store.
The hardware store, yes.
Right.
So I decided that I would continue to work full-time.
As a teacher?
As a teacher. And then in 2019, I left to try to grow the business and also care for my grandparents.
Okay. All right. So that was a little bit of your past. We can get back to that later if we go that way.
Sure.
But Richard, since she threw you in the deep end there and said Richard was going to do this, how did that happen? Well, let's talk about what you did that uniquely qualified you to do this.
Well, in my former life,
right?
For 20 years, I worked for a paint company that dealt with Lowe's hardware.
Okay.
And I was at a point where this wasn't quite, there was no room for growth, no room for opportunity, and I was just burnt out.
Oh.
So I was looking for other things, like maybe going to work for another company or whatever, and this presented itself to us. Well, I came home, I can remember this distinctly. I came home and I told Angie, I said, they're going to sell the hardware store and they think we'd be a good fit for it. And she went, what? You want to buy a hardware store? I was like, I know that's not where I thought we were going to go with this. So we thought about it and we molded over, and then I got some other people involved and got their opinions, and we dug into some stuff. And about 3 or 4 months into it, we said, we can do this. We can do this. And
what was it? What was that pivotal moment of where you were teetering? You're like, I don't know. And something happened. So what was that thing that happened that pushed you over the edge in a good way, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was I just was tired of working for other people. I mean, it has its benefits. There are a lot of benefits to being self-employed, being your own boss, because I fire myself every day. But I hire myself back at the end of the day. But I think I was just like, I think we can make this work. We can we can put our mark on something. And I don't have to worry about a big corporation or 2 big corporations or anything like that.
So when you were looking at this, Richard, Angela, you both are coming from kind of a singular focus industry, education and then paint, right? So I would imagine you know everything in the world there is to know about paint.
I know a lot about paint.
And now you're thinking about doing this thing that's going to broaden your necessary knowledge out to include just about everything, right?
Correct.
So was that part of that decision, or did it kind of click for you?
It just sort of clicked. I mean, it was just like, okay, I've been in a hardware store. I've been focused in the paint area, but I've been in a hardware store for 20 years. You know? I don't know everything about it. There were things that I didn't know when we did finally buy the store, and day one, I'm going, okay, The funny thing is, everybody was like, "Are you going to put in paint?" I was like, "No, I want to get away from paint,
Right.
Other than like spray paints and things like that." So, yes, my background was paint. I have basic knowledge in hardware, but I saw it as an opportunity to grow and learn and have fun. So.
There's more paint there now, though, right?
There's a little more paint, but we still don't. We're still not where we don't mix paint. That's just a whole nother. That's like level 3.
Right.
We're
right.
just not there yet.
And you're at that entry level there with paint.
We're still in that. Yeah, exactly, and it fits our need.
All right, that's good. So if you buy paint at Wilkes Hardware, shake your own paint.
We'll shake it. We'll shake it for you. But
you got one of those machines?
No, we'll shake it for you like this.
Literally,
Yeah.
literally. Okay, well, that builds your muscles. That's
right.
That's a good thing. Okay, so that frames the idea. So now that my next question is, so you've made this decision and you're okay with all the items and broadening out what you need to focus on or be able to talk to people about. But then there's this piece about Wilkes Hardware itself. This is not a new building. This is not a building that's got the newest anything, really, right? Mm-hmm. So talk about that. So going into a business that is part of an area's history, and it means a lot to a lot of people.
We were given a lot of oral history about the building itself. So from what we know, the building dates back to like 1905. And E.E. Eller, wholesaler, was the proprietor at the time. And Mr. Eller processed chickens and turkeys in that building. Until probably around 1941, as far as the newspaper clippings we can see. So Mr. Eller left that facility on 324 10th Street in 1941 and moved to a larger facility, is what I have read. And I have some gaps in research, so we're still continuing to try to figure that out. But he processed, in the height of his production, like the chickens and turkeys were packed in ice and put them on the train. Just, a couple of streets down, like $1 million in a year.
Million and a half in a year. And they did it by hand.
Wow.
And people herded them to town. They didn't, they would herd them to town.
You mean herding as in the
like
chickens were...
The farmers would come from surrounding counties all over.
Right.
And a friend of ours actually has a sign that has a directional arrow that points towards E.E. Eller Wholesale.
Wow.
That he has in his, antique collection.
Is that what the idea being that sign would help the chicken farmer herders tell them where to go?
Yes.
Okay, everybody, let's take 3 seconds and close our eyes and just imagine, if you will, you're driving down the road and here comes a chicken farmer. Look, it's not like it is today. There's not a big tractor trailer and the chickens riding to town. They're literally being herded. Let's close our eyes. Oh my gosh.
Sometimes I don't want to think about that.
Yeah. But that's a piece of history, right? That's Americana at its best. Right. And how many people knew this? When you share this story with people, are they like, they never heard that before?
They're like, wow, that's they've never heard it. And and then the second piece to this, that's just the beginning of like the building and the history of everything. That second piece is how it got turned into a hardware store.
So after the chickens are gone,
right?
The trains left the depot. The last million chickens are out the door, and now it's time for him to go to a bigger facility.
Correct.
To do more chickens, I guess.
Do whatever
he's doing.
Yeah.
How did it turn into a hardware store?
So at some point, Mr. Yates bought the building sometime, I think, in the mid-40s.
It was the early 40s, yeah.
Early 40s, and then Richard tells the story actually a little bit better about Mr. Yates, but he and I think his last name was Vanoy.
Yes.
John Vanoy, I think, was actually his manager, but they set it up as a hardware store
And the reason they set it up as a hardware store, because Mr. Yates, being in Wilkes County,
Right.
we know our history here. Big moonshiner.
Right.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
Mr. Yates was.
Mr.
Yes.
Yates was a big moonshiner, so he wanted a place for his customers to buy their
Right.
supplies.
Right.
So he opened a hardware store, and it's been a hardware store ever since. So basically, it's basically a front for a moonshine operation. Right, wrong, whatever. But it was a hardware store. And people would go and buy. They'd buy whatever they needed. Maybe some of it was for home repair. Maybe it was for other things.
Right.
But Mr. Yates had a big influence in the late 40s and the 50s. Someone else had given us a story about the bank
Right.
around the corner. The bank manager called Mr. Yates one morning and said, "I can't get my safe open, and I don't have money to start out the day with. And he goes, "How much do you need?" He said, "About 20,000 would work." He goes, "Send 2 armed guards down here." And he goes, so they came down and they wheeled back 2 wheelbarrows full of cash, so he could until somebody could get there to open
Right.
it. Now,
Right.
that's what we were told. I don't know 100%, but it's a great story. And
Well, it is a great story.
And you know what ruins a good story?
That's right. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah.
So okay. So we go from chickens to liquor.
Right.
Right. A cash trade.
Sure.
And, friendly with the bank. And okay, what happens next? Oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear this. With all the liquor business, did they sell hammer and nails?
They sold everything.
So
but
okay.
But they sold a lot of, they sold a lot of copper tubing, and,
Of course.
and all the things that you might need
Supplies.
to build a steel or whatever,
Right.
But it was a legit hardware store, and like I tell people when they come in, we're telling them a story, and I said, and if you were to go out our back door and look to the right, the white building right there, that's where the original Lowe's hardware started.
Right.
In the back door, because a lot of people get confused and they think that our store was the original Lowe's, what it was not. Wilkes Hardware started a year or two, maybe. It was right around the same time that Lowe's Hardware started.
Right.
And we know where they went. We know how they've grown and everything. And then, but that's just a part of that history.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your little piece of Wilkes County, you're not only working in a place on a daily basis, right? Mm-hmm. Taking care of customers, still coming in and getting their copper tubing. And I'm not.
I've learned not to ask what they're doing.
So all of these things are happening within, I don't know, a few hundred feet. There's a building, which was the building that Lowe's Hardware originally started in.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So that helps frame the idea of the significance of the history of the building you're in. Do you feel like that you have a little bit of responsibility and protecting the stories, the history stories, the heritage of the building and the area?
We do. And actually with like just the wood stove itself, when I have written about it, on the blog or put it on any of our social media, the great grandson of the foundry, the Glasscock Foundry, he has reached out to me personally and given me a lot of like background information on the foundry itself.
And they're the ones that made the stove.
So the stove that's there now,
yes,
it's like a big potbelly stove, right?
Exactly, and it was made by Glasscock, and they had a foundry in
Greensboro,
North
Right.
Carolina,
Yeah.
and probably from the
late 1800s
Wow.
through the 1960s, 70s.
So how old is the stove that you have there now?
The model is a 24N, and it
24N.
was a larger model that they would use like in schoolhouses, churches, something like that. The one that
bigger
we
space.
have, bigger spaces like you would see in the Moravian church.
at Old Salem. They
at
have
Old
one
Salem.
just like it in there,
Okay.
and it's probably dates to about
40s.
the 40s, 1940s.
Okay.
That
All right.
model is probably 1940s. It was originally coal burning, and then they converted it to wood. We have an interesting story about the next owner, Harvey. Harvey, actually, there was a piece that kind of went wonky sometime in the 70s, and he drove to Greensboro down towards the foundry and walked into the graveyard of parts where the
Right.
old foundry was, found the part, brought it back, installed it, and put it on the stove.
Wow. So, was it the Cadillac of stoves at that time?
I would say so.
Yeah, it was probably one of your better. Yeah, because I mean, I know like I believe this is correct. The state of North Carolina, early on in the early 1900s and 20s and 30s, whatever, when they had schoolhouses that had potbelly stoves, most of those had glass cocks in them. So
Right.
that's what the state of North Carolina was using. So we've had some people come in that maybe are experts or whatever on wood stoves, and they when they look down, they say, "Oh, well, that's a glass cock." Oh, okay,
Right.
so obviously
So it means something.
It means
Yeah.
something.
It means
yeah.
something, right?
Yeah, and I think we're very fortunate to have it and for it to be in the condition it's in. Of course, we take care of it, and but it's an interesting piece of. It's a conversation starter.
Sure. Well, there's just the idea of sitting around, and I've been to your store, and when you go into Wilkes Hardware, it does feel like you're stepping back in time. I mean, your collection. I mean, you've got the hardware, you've got all of those things that people can buy. But Angela, I think you maybe have influenced the store a bit because of your love of teaching and artwork, right?
We do have a lot of local artisans, and
Talk about that.
we have a fantastic woodworker in our store, Keegan Watson.
The tuba player.
Yes, the tuba player.
Been in the story with him. It's
Yes.
great.
Also has a fantastic barbecue sauce
Yes,
now.
he does.
So we're featuring that.
Wait. So Keegan, the tuba
Yeah.
player, and when we say tuba player, he's really good, and he's
Yes.
classically trained,
Yes,
right?
correct.
Yes.
So classically trained in that world, then I'm not surprised that he expresses himself in another form of artistry by carving. But he doesn't do it in a small way. I mean, he's just such an overachiever. He's gotten a lot of acclaim, right, for his work.
Absolutely.
And so you've got these two steps, and now he's a barbecue chef?
Well, he
Loosely.
not really. He's not a barbecue, but he can do that stuff.
A barbecue sauce maker.
Sauce.
He makes
Yes.
and the way we came upon it was last Apple Festival. He had done, or actually it was before that.
Right.
He had done something for his wife Melanie, for a group of her peers and whatnot. He had done some barbecue, and he brought us some, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be good." And when I tasted, I was like, "Oh my goodness!"
It was really good.
I was like, "Keegan, you need to be making this and bottling it." Do
It
you
was
think
an
so?
instant staff favorite.
Everybody that tasted it was like,
Really?
"Oh my gosh!"
Yes.
So he makes and it's just called sauce.
sauce.
The sauce.
It's just called sauce. It's got a label that says sauce.
How fitting is it? The sauce has returned to Wilkes Hardware.
It's a different type of sauce. A little different type of sauce. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I like that. But as far as what she's going back to her influences, Angie has a heavy influence on that
Local
stuff.
honey. We also have locally made soap, goat's milk soap. We also have stained glass artists out of Alexander County, local pottery. Oh my goodness!
You've got all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Angela, was this because these were things that you individually had interest in, or was it just because once you started with some artisan items in your shop or in the store that more people came to you? How did it work? Combination?
A combination of those two things. So we had a couple of people who wanted to put some things in there, but mostly, initially I was seeking out a couple of unique artists to kind of bring a different element more than just hardware in our store, and to support some local artists as well. So it's been a little bit of both, but as our collections are growing, I think people are starting to ask, can I bring my things to showcase and have them inside the hardware store?
That's becoming more and more a thing, and they'll see what we have, and they'll go, hey, can we? And then we're like, look, if you want to, we'll talk to you, but there's no, and I don't want this to come out the wrong way, but we are a little picky.
Well, sure. Well, you have to curate what you have.
And we have a very strong loyalty to Keegan. Right. Because we I know you've done the show with him and everything, and he's gotten lots of claim and well deserved, and we sort of helped him from the beginning. Right. Because we believed in it. And
you still do.
And we still do. And he sends people to the store all the time. If you want to see his work, come to the store, and maybe you can get some hardware. Right. So it's just been a great thing. So, but we're always looking for new things. Yeah. Not always in the hardware world, maybe more artisan type things or whatever, especially.
Does that make it more enjoyable for the both of you, having this blend of things? Because with the blend, it's a blend of people who come in, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not all just nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
And I think it's a refreshing surprise for people to see not just the nuts and bolts. Yeah. They're like, oh, I didn't know that you had this. Yes. I'm going to come back when I need this type of gift.
Sure. That's nice. Just like I do.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that impressed me about you, Richard, is, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, we had a light, one of these lights with barn doors on it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember that. And something broke off.
Right, I remember
And I was trying to find the bolt. Well, you couldn't order it from the manufacturer. I had to order the whole thing. I said, that's crazy. So I bring it up to you, and I say, look, I didn't know what to tell you to do. I just knew it was broken. And you looked at it, and you was like, oh, let me take it. And you went and you got a bolt, and I don't know, I think it's 80 cents or what. Yeah. But doing that for people, does that feed you? Does that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does. I mean, I like helping people out. Right. I want to have a solution for everybody, but sometimes we don't. But we try to give them places to go, or we can't have everything. We're not a 100,000 square foot store, right? And that's okay. But sort of what you're talking about there is that that one-on-one personal relationship, helping you out, and hopefully you come back, whether it's for that one little nut or bolt, right, or it might be for a bunch of things.
Get your knife sharpened.
Yeah, whatever. Buy your pool supplies. Buy this. Do this. Can you order that? We get a lot of questions. We don't have it in stock, but we can order this. And that's what we like to do. That we want to service the community.
That's fantastic. Well, I think what we've done today is start the journey with Wilkes Hardware and Angela and Richard and your stores, because this is obviously, Tim, this is part 1. So we're going to be true. We're going to be true to our somewhat loose timelines and create stories that no more than 20, 30 minutes, and then we'll just come back later because people are going to want to hear from the two of you even more. It sounds like the both of you have made yourselves comfortable in the hardware business and in an old building in North Wilkesboro?
We're trying. We're trying.
Well, that's fair enough. Angela, Richard, thank you so much for coming in. We love your story. We love the fact that you care enough to do the work and just stay committed, because old buildings require a lot of love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending time with us on Life in Wilkes. We value you as a viewer and appreciate when you share the show with your friends and family. Be sure to bookmark our channel and join us again on the next episode of Life in Wilkes.